Hello there, my name is Armando. For a long time, I believed something about discipline, which many people also seem to believe, I think. I thought that discipline was purely psychological, something that lived entirely inside the person. So that meant that if you were disciplined, you were strong. If you struggled, it meant you lacked willpower. If you failed to maintain a routine, it meant you simply needed to have more self control. At least that's how I interpreted it for many years. But over time, something started to feel inconsistent in that explanation because my discipline did not feel stable across different environments. I'm sure we all have periods in life where maintaining routines can feel surprisingly easy. The structures flow naturally, consistency requires less effort, there is no negotiation. And then there are other periods where the exact same habits feel much heavier. The same actions require much more effort from us, and the same routines suddenly feel difficult to maintain. What changed, I realized, was not my character by no means. It was my environment. And when I say environment, I don't mean physical surroundings, I mean everything: climate, light, workload, social rhythm, the emotional atmosphere, and even the cultural pace of the place we live in. They all have an impact. And over time, I began noticing how strongly these factors influence our behavior. Let me give you a very personal example here. I live most of the year in Berlin, in Germany. And if you have experienced Berlin weathers before, you know they can be long, gray, and quite dark. Sunlight becomes scarce, energy shifts, mood suddenly changes. Even the rhythm of the city feels slower and heavier, so it's an entirely different place. And for years, I tried to apply the exact same expectations to myself during winter as I did during summer. And this as a Brazilian living in Europe. So I tried to have the same productivity, the same social rhythm, the same physical intensity. And when I struggled to maintain that, I assumed it was a problem of my discipline. But eventually, I started noticing something much simpler: that my body responds to light, my energy responds to climate, that my mood most definitely responds to my environment. So instead of fighting that reality, I started trying to adjust to it. So now, between December and February, I spend time in Brazil with my family. Sunlight, warm weather, people I love, movement, so a completely different rhythm of life. And then something very interesting happens when I return to Berlin afterwards. I mean, the gray winter still exists and it lasts for a long time, but my internal state is different. I feel more resilient, more grounded, more willing to engage with the slower rhythm of the season, even. What I used to interpret as a problem of discipline was actually a question of environmental design. And this insight extends far beyond travel here. We often underestimate in our life how much behavior depends on context. So, if healthy food is visible and accessible, eating well becomes easier. If the gym is en route home, exercising becomes easier. If your workspace reduces distraction, keeping focused becomes easier. And the opposite is also true. We frequently blame ourselves for behavioral struggles that are kind of structurally predictable. Expecting stable behavior in unstable conditions is not weakness, it's simply unrealistic. Once I began to understand this, my relationship with discipline changed entirely. So I stopped asking myself, can I push harder? And I started asking a different question, like, what in my environment is making this harder than it needs to be right now? Sometimes the answer is surprisingly small. It's something like a shift in schedule, a change in lighting, a physical rearrangement of your space, or a boundary around your time. So, really, small adjustments in context, but that often produce disproportionately large changes in our behavior. And perhaps that is the deeper insight here, that discipline is not only a test of character, very often it's a reflection of design. When the environment supports that kind of behavior, discipline feels lighter. When the environment constantly opposes it, discipline suddenly becomes exhausting. So sometimes the solution is not increasing effort, it is simply adjusting the system around you. Something I thought was worth considering